Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Leading from the Living Room webinar. My name is Natsumi Funabiki, and I lead the Japan business for the Dream Collective. The concept for these sessions that we've been holding is having live, unfiltered conversations with executives, not in the meeting setting in a boardroom, but in a more casual and open way, hence the living room. So we started this series early last year with the start of the pandemic. And I do want to just say that I hope everyone tuning in today is staying safe and well, especially I know a lot of people are tuning in from Japan where the situation still is seeming quite unpredictable. Yeah. Before I introduce our wonderful guest here with me today, I'll share a little bit about the Dream Collective. Here we go. We are a global diversity, equity, and inclusion consultancy headquartered in Sydney, Australia, and we work globally, predominantly in the JPAC region from Japan, Singapore, Shanghai, and further beyond, especially since we started working a lot more digitally. And our focus is on gender diversity, and our mission, put simply, is to see more women and female leaders and be a part of that movement. How we do that is through working with organizations to help them with attracting, retaining, or advancing their female talent. And we do that through consulting, training, and branding initiatives. So that's a little bit about us. Now let me introduce our guest here with me today. We have Aaron Carmichael, Director of People and Culture from Philip Morris Japan. So Aaron has had quite a diverse career. He started with working for the South African government as a clinical psychologist, and then moving on to having several HR consulting roles in his own private practice in South Africa, as well as across Europe as well. He joined Philip Morris International in 2013 as a regional head of management and organizational development based in Hong Kong. And his current position he's held since 2016 as Director of People and Culture for Japan. Aaron leads the organizational transformation of PMI's key global market and creating and driving the internal transformation strategy for over 1,900 employees over the past 5 years. So I'm really excited to learn more about your initiatives, successes, as well as some of the challenges that you've overcome throughout your role here today. So let me just stop sharing screen so we can see Aaron. And thanks for joining us today.
No, my pleasure. Thanks, Nat. It's great to be on the call.
Yeah. And we actually worked with Philip Morris Japan with our book that we launched in March as well, Together She Soars. Aaron's chapter is in there as well. So we'd love for everyone to check that out as well. We have 1 hour together here today. For people tuning in live, there's a Q&A box at the Zoom banner right at the bottom. So would love for you to be sending questions, any comments throughout that. So myself and Aaron can have a look and make sure that we get to some throughout this 1 hour live session here today. Okay. I'll start by kicking off though. So, there's been a lot going on with Philip Morris International, going through a lot of global transformation as I've been hearing. So Aaron, if you could start off by sharing some details about your transformation at Philip Morris Japan and also how it impacted the employees, especially in reference to DEI.
Great. Thanks so much. So just to start off, I have a very strong accent, so I will do my best to slow down a little bit my South African accent, because I know at times that I do speak rather fast. So if I do speak too fast, you can put that in the comments as well, and we'll adjust. So lovely to be here. I think more than anything else around our transformation is really driving towards delivering a smoke-free future. And what that means is really the elimination of cigarettes. So you would have seen recently our new CEO, Jacek, actually was in the Nikkei, I think it was last week. And he mentioned that we're looking to end cigarettes in the next 10 to 15 years. That's our ambition. So our whole transformation of our business is around that. And it's mainly focused around being as consumer-centric as we can be. Now, I know that sounds quite logical for a lot of people, and it's not that easy. To move to being purely consumer-centric, you have to do a lot of change. And in the 5.5 years I've been in Japan, a lot of that change has been structural change, resource change, but also We've had to change our performance management, our talent process, our governance, the ways we work, the physical environment. So there's been a constant flow of transformation that we've had. Of course, with change brings great opportunities. So for a lot of our employees, they've had an acceleration in their career. They're in very different positions than they maybe thought of them being in a number of years ago. They've been stretched, they've been developed, and that's been fantastic. But at the same time, it's been scary. I mean, this is, change is never easy. And one of the biases that I was fed when I came from Hong Kong, because I was in Hong Kong for 2.5 years, was Japanese are very stubborn, risk averse. They'll say yes, but nothing will move. What a terrible bias, because in my time here, I've done 4 full organizational restructures and 9 functional ones. And I think people are very fluid. They're very open. They're very transparent, willing to jump in. And I think that bias was a lie. And I'm glad to be able to say that. And without the ability to be flexible and to handle such ambiguity, we wouldn't be as successful as we have been. So some of the changes that have happened, you mentioned in the beginning about female talent. Due to all these changes, we've had 33% of our promotions and our upgrades this year across the company has been female. And our manager level, when we've looked at the restructure that we've done, 46% of our manager promotions and upgrades have been for females. So it's given us an opportunity to really change the balance that was necessary in the organization. I think one of the challenges we've had with the transformation, which is always difficult, is we've also had to inject a lot of new talent, that people that have all the skills, but maybe culturally are not the fit that we would usually have. So we've had to be very open and create inclusive environments. And I think this is where bringing people in from digital, we had a very small digital group. Now we've got over 40 digital people that a lot of them are agency. They don't like corporates, and we've had to create an environment that they feel comfortable to work in and they can really do well. A lot in retail, brought a lot of people in customer service. Our customer service used to be a handful of people, and now with third parties included, it's over 650. So it's really increased in size. And I think what it's allowed is diversity of thinking, diversity of ideas, diversity of experience. But because we have a common goal and common values, we've been able to hold it all together. And that value has been, how do we create the smoke-free vision in Japan?
Yeah, thank you for that, Aaron. And I think, a lot about what you talked about, admitting that you had some biases before you came to Japan and really understanding, how it works. And, really, I think you've been in Japan for 5.5 years now. So really, getting to know your employees and, having those successful transformations throughout your career. I think one thing to know as a non-Japanese person as well is a really big achievement that you've made. And, a bit about what you talked about with, people being very diverse. And it's actually really difficult. It's easier to have a non-diverse group because everybody gets along, everybody has shared values of, ways of thinking, and you won't argue. But actually, headbutting a bit, having some arguments and having that kind of diversity of thinking is really what brings innovation, right? So I think PMJ has done a really great job in putting that at the forefront and bringing that into your working culture as well as the employees and how you kind of structure your goals and strategies as well. Yeah.
And look, I think the difficulty for me, I thought living in so many different countries, I've worked everywhere in the world except in South America. I think it's the only area I haven't worked in. I thought I was pretty open and from an inclusive perspective. In the beginning, I found Japan difficult, and difficult because people are so polite, and I'm used to people pushing back a little bit more. And I thought I was doing so well. And it's actually funny. I got married in Japan. My wife's half Japanese, half English. And So I cheated a little bit because she really helped me understand the culture so much more.
Right.
I think without her, I would have taken me much longer to understand a number of the nuances.
Yeah,
it's just really hard to understand in the beginning. Make a lot of assumptions, which I think is
yeah, definitely. And I think with the language as well, it's kind of like the long culture of the ways things are done. There's a lot of unspoken rules in Japan, so I guess we can say that your wife contributed to you really integrating and accelerating your understanding of Japan, which is great to hear. I think another question that I want to get move along to is, I know that with what PMJ is doing, and we introduced this when we were introducing this webinar and throughout the book as well, but PMJ and PMI have achieved gender equal pay across the organization, which is a massive achievement, especially in a market like Japan, where there's so much need for improvement, so much need for really getting to a place where we have enough representation or diversity for female leaders. So PMJ's focused a lot on DEI over the last number of years, especially. So could you share with us what are some of the main barriers actually that you've encountered throughout that process and how you've overcome them?
Yeah. Okay. So I think if I focus on three main ones, the first one is the resistance to change, and this isn't really unique now. I grew up in apartheid South Africa. I was in university when apartheid ended. In 1995, it was all about a rainbow nation. Everything was possible. But there was still a lot of resistance to change. And a lot of it stems from, it seems to be the number one barrier. It can be a lack of understanding. And I think this is where people are asking the why. What is the purpose of why we're doing all these things around diversity and inclusion, and why we're doing it? And we can explain the how. Everyone speaks about it engages, it adds productivity, and it increases satisfaction in employee engagement. But the emotional side, some people just are stuck in that space. And the barrier to change is, it can be ignorance or bias, but sometimes that is very logical. Stuck in that space because there's fear of maybe losing a job, whatever it may be. And I think that resistance to change is the one that we've really tried to work through the most at PMJ. And how we've done it is we focus on two main things. We focus on gender and we focus on persons with disability. That's the main focus we've got right now in Japan. Now, I was in banking before, which was much broader. We had 8 different focus areas, but now with PMJ, we focus on these two main areas. We made it clear what the purpose of D&I is. We made it clear of the why and how that we're going to move forward. We've redefined our behaviors, our leadership behaviors. We also redefined how we measure leaders on those leadership behaviors and what we expect from them. And we embedded new ways of working and project-based working. And that broke down a lot of the resistance around that. So that's the first one. Second one, lack of commitment from leaders, which is really tough. I used to be a consultant. If you don't have the buy-in from leadership, it's like trying to push water uphill. But it takes a lot of effort. So I think you've got to have leaders that visibly not just say that they're committed, but they show their commitment. And I think one of the key things that you have to do is you've got to identify leaders that are really good at being inclusive, who embrace diversity. And they should be the ones that you really work with the most. And initially, they will really help you and support, drive it, rather than trying to get your detractors to be promoters. You're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort, and they're not going to move. So go with the ones that are already there, your promoters, and then look at your neutrals and see who you can pull over. Because what happens is your more inclusive leaders, they develop inclusive leaders and to get critical mass. And I think that's a good way to get your commitment to leadership. But if you don't have the money and the resources and the actual ambition and time on a senior level, you can persuade from the middle, but it becomes much more difficult. So getting that commitment is important. And then the last barrier would be having a clear strategy around this. I think often when we come to inclusion, what I've seen is we do lots of stuff, and really great stuff, and everyone enjoys it and it's fantastic, but to what end? And it can't be a D&I strategy It's a business strategy.
Mm.
And D&I is woven into that strategy. And that's what we've focused on. We do OGSMs, which is not that sexy. It basically is just objectives, goals, strategy, and measurement, and KPIs that we set. But we've got a number of I&D KPIs that are set around female hiring, female development to female leadership, and also how we're giving opportunities to talent. So there's the main barriers and how we've overcome them. Made many mistakes along the way. You've really got to be comfortable with that. You're not going to get it all right.
Yeah, definitely. And you learn from those mistakes and you have new discoveries throughout that, right? And I think what you're mentioning about going from those senior leaders and getting that commitment from them, especially in a country like Japan, where they're, especially in a lot of domestic companies, that hierarchy of, how people lead with the, top senior leaders' visions and how it trickles down. It's really important to get those people on board and for that to be really, circulating throughout the organization, I think. So that's definitely one thing. And we've actually gotten a question from the audience, and I think they want to learn a bit more about you and your experiences. So you mentioned that, you've worked a lot in different cultures, different countries, and, understanding the culture is definitely key to being able to have those relevant strategies and really, hearing that market right. So somebody from the audience is asking, what's the biggest culture shock for you when you first started off in Japan, and how did you overcome it? And I think this can go for both non-work related, but also business strategy related as well. So I would love to hear from you.
Oh, wow, that's actually a tough one, personal one. So I'll go for the business one. It's easier. I think the one that I really struggle with is the pursuit of perfection. So it's a beautiful thing. And I think the pursuit of perfection is a fantastic and amazing cultural element that I admire about the Japanese culture. But I struggle in the sense of, I'm a more type of, build it 70% and we'll fix it as we go, because we need to move. So that was the real difficult for me, where I wanted to move faster, but actually when I waited a couple of days or weeks, what I would get would be amazing. It would be perfect. And find that balance between the drive of it's 80%, it's okay, to this perfection in the business. That in my first couple of months, that was really difficult. On a personal side, what did I find? The biggest difficulty, I'm a bit paranoid. I grew up in South Africa, so security and I'm still paranoid. I still check the windows at night and doors. I must do it like 2 or 3 times.
Right.
I grew up. My wife, I drive her insane with it. I think one of the things I struggle even now with is the safety and we're in such a beautiful country. And many people, I think, take it for granted. The safety and security of your life and the liquidity and what you have here is amazing. I think that for me was, I didn't realize how it was.
Definitely. And I think, sometimes when I come back to Japan or like move around, I realize that Japan's probably one of the very few countries where you leave your phone, your wallet, something really valuable, that it'll come back to you.
Well, I lost my phone. It's funny you say that. I lost my phone. And it has my business card in the back, and it came back. I actually left my Rolex on plane when I landed in the airport. My assistant phoned the next day, and staff had actually picked it up, and they asked me to send me a picture, and the next day they posted it to me.
Wow.
Where else in the world? in my home country, that would be gone. That would be gone. So I mean, we are very lucky.
Yeah, and I think appreciating the differences makes people understand what is really special about Japan or certain other countries. So having that diversity of backgrounds and thoughts and what you're used to as well really adds richness to especially a company and their culture as well. So I think that's definitely important. We do have another question from the audience as well on what we were just discussing. So you were talking about the commitment of leaders, and it's really important to get them through, and for them to advocate internally as well. So we've gotten a question from the audience asking about, then what's the biggest challenge in getting these leaders committed? So they've said, for example, do you need to educate them, or do you need to create incentive? What's the best way in, your experience of focusing on commitment of leaders and the challenge that you faced throughout that?
Look, I don't have the perfect answer. It all depends on the leader, right? So I'm a psychologist, so I suppose in a way I've got a little bit of an advantage, that what I try and do is pick up the background of the leader and what is that person got. And when you talk about all the intersectionality theory and how it works, we go through that and the different opportunities and challenges the person had to try and make them understand, because the theory, a lot of people get. They understand that D&I and the theory, and they've seen research and they know that diverse teams are more productive, but there's something blocking them wanting to get committed. So often it's not education. Often it's exploring their bias. Some leaders you can do that with openly and they're comfortable with you. Others, it's much more difficult. So like I said, I think if you can get a couple of leaders that are with you, critical mass works. So they might not buy your story, but buy the head of finance's story who went through the same process, or they'll buy another person in the organization as at the same level. So I think, you can go in on your own, that you do need to individualize it if you have difficult leaders. The leaders I ever had in my career were in banking. It was very difficult. The drives were very different. And diversity and inclusion was still relatively a newer concept for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think, diversity and inclusion still is quite a new concept sometimes for a lot of business leaders in Japan. And it's a struggle to get that commitment and awareness. So I think what you said about critical mass, getting that through, and just, challenging their bias as well is definitely one thing, because we're so used to the way that we've done things. And I think in Japan, change happens very, very slowly a lot of the time. So really creating that urgency and that need, and then going forward from there is really what I
think. Also, if you can see what the motivator is. Speaking to a person, and I'll just use finance because it's the easiest one. If I'm speaking to someone and they're from finance, then I need to get the data and I need to speak their language. Show them that by having a diverse team and creating an inclusive environment, this is productivity and efficiency, and I speak their language, then they usually will buy it. But it becomes, you've really got to find that hook, especially with senior leaders. And once you have a couple on board, it just helps you so much more.
Yeah, because you're a network and you span from there, and you create, you say that, you influence one person, it goes to 7 other people. So creating that web of influence and like thought leadership, I guess, is really important.
And also you can hack the system. If you can't do that, get partners. So like partners like you, Nats, and like what we did, and I'll call out to Janelle, we used Janelle from the ENY, and she's fantastic. We also used Angela Peacock, and we used a number of companies help us. So if you can't influence leaders and you're struggling in that space, you're not alone. There's many people out there that have gone through it as well, that you can use to help you influence those leaders. So,
definitely. And, that's what we do as well here. And like, PMJ being part of our book, along with 12 other companies, was really showing that collective voice, people coming together. And, there's differences in the way that the challenges or the focuses that they've had, but we have one common goal of really saying, we need awareness on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need more female leadership, especially in Japan, where change has been so stagnant. So really think that is one big step to making sure that, you involve people internally, but also reach out, have partners, like have ways of bringing awareness and urgency towards that. I think moving on to another question I had. So you mentioned about the 2 key focus areas for you at PMJ, one being female leader advancement, and then the other one being people with disabilities. So could you share with us some programs and initiatives that you've successfully deployed around diversity and inclusion, and why you've done that? Because I think a lot of people want to hear really practical kind of solutions and elements that you've done. We have a lot of business leaders as well as emerging leaders, leading companies or also, being in that DEI space. So would love to hear some of what you've done, what has been successful.
Okay. So we spend a bit more time in this space. So let me start off first with gender. As I said in the book, our focus has been around empowering, encouraging, giving opportunities and supporting female talent in the organization. And we really want to create that environment. And it's an ongoing thing that you need to create, that inclusive environment. And we established what a lot of people have established. So there's no silver bullet here. This is, we've had OGs, we've had female role leaders, role modeling, sponsorship, buddies, mentoring. We've done also assessment and career development, where we've actually gone and taught, and we've trained people about, presentation skills and CVs. And from that group, maybe 2 or 3 people are interested in joining us. So we've also a little bit of different ideas that we've had to try and attract female talent in. But I think the biggest draw card was when I first arrived there in 2016, it was really looking at equal salary, equal pay. So at that stage, it's now down at 24.5%, 25%, the gap between men and women. Yeah. And it was something that for me was I just couldn't believe it. Maybe it's also from my background. I just couldn't believe that gap was so big. So we had partnered with the Equal Salary and Employer group in Switzerland, and our Switzerland market had become certified. So we decided, after speaking to the global head of HR, that wouldn't it be great if we could actually do this in Japan? So doing it in another European country, with 4 or 5% difference, would it have any impact? So decided to do the equal salary here in Japan, and we went through a full audit, and that was in 2016. We did it in 17 and 18. And then through the success of that, we actually now have a global equal salary certification. So all markets, so all 190 plus markets around the world have all gone through this process. Now, it's not a tick the box, you get a certificate. You get audited, and it actually costs quite a lot of money, because what you're doing is you're addressing the salary gap. So what you need to do is, to give you a practical example, if you've got a female talent that's been out for 2 times to have children, she's come back, she may have missed 2 or 3 merit cycles. So you have to make a practical adjustment and adjust so there's an equality between counterparts at the same level. So we did equal salary, and it was a fantastic experience to go through. And now we're sitting at less than 0.4 difference. And it's a couple of cases like that. People are out on sabbatical and have come back, or the salary table has adjusted and we need to move those people up. But it's been a fantastic effort around equal salary. Now, what helped us do was attract a lot of talent that we wouldn't have attracted before, because they look and they go, wow, this company means what they say, and we've got evidence around that. So that was the equal salary piece. The second piece that we wanted to focus on when I got here was around maternity. The figures I'd heard in 2016 was 60% of 30 plus females never return to work. And for me, my biggest talent pool of female talent is between the ages of 30 and 45. So we went and did a lot of research working. We went to the female talent that were on maternity that had returned. And we said, what are the biggest challenges that you have? And there's 2 challenges came up. One is money. So right now, there's such a long waiting list to put your kids into nursery, and private can be $2,000 to $3,000 a month. It's too expensive for a number of people to come back. So the second one was around when people return to the workforce, they don't want to be working 8 to 10 to 12 hours, especially in Japan. They would like a reduction in hours. So the 2 things we did was we set up a new maternity and childcare policy, where currently we've got 31 female talent and also 9 male talent. That's part of that. We give reduced hours to mothers that are returning to work. So they work 6 hours, but are paid full pay for the first 3 years. Right. So we want our talent back. So it's not for the 6 months. So this is, we also pay extra towards the tuition for the kids going to a nursery. So in the first year, there's a certain amount, it's about 50,000 yen a month by $5, and then it goes down to, and that's up to the first 7 years, so up until the child goes to primary school.
Wow.
Practical things like that. And that is actually the outcome was we've got 100% of returnee of people that go out and have children, or also are male talents that go out to support their partners. Well, they've got those opportunities, so that's been really good. So there's two benefits. I'm trying to think of anything else different from a traction perspective. It's the same what everyone's done, I think, more than anything else. You know, we do recruitment events, we do open house, but we try and leverage on a of our internal policies that we had to change. Because I think that's where people look and they say, is it just rhetoric? Or was the real culture here? And how do they really look after the talent? And how do they really develop female talent? So.
Yeah, and just to jump in there, it's really great to hear, you know, what those initiatives that you're rolling out and are continuing to do in PMJ are, and that returnship element, you know, losing your talent actually costs the business a lot more, like finding and replacing. Our managing director, Sarah, was actually speaking about this, that it costs like 3 to 4 times maybe, you know, to really replace a talent that's been lost or is not going to come back. So, you know, understanding that and then getting to that point of, okay, what are the initiatives or the support that the company can give to provide that inclusive environment is definitely important. And I think the you know, the work hours, the flexibility part has definitely been a struggle for Japan and women coming back. On that note, I do want to go to a question that's come from the audience surrounding that. So I think we've talked a lot about, you know, the gender, the pay gap, everything, and like returning to work. I think a big barrier as well in Japan is that generation gap of like people having very different ways depending on their generation. And this person said, like, you know, struggling with the older generation leaders, really believing that, you know, pushing to that extreme hard work, like long hours is really, you know, what counts as good work, I guess, and to see that younger generation. So they're, you know, wanting to see like, what can you do when you get to that problem, and if you have any anecdotes that would be helpful as well.
You know, I didn't. If you had asked me for 2 things, the culture shock. The second one was the amount of hours people work. I mean, I work long hours. People here work an excessive amount of hours. I mean, I've never had accrued annual leave like I have now, because I've also fallen into that too. I never take leave. You're always working. So, I think it was difficult. We introduced half day Friday, and it took me from February up until I think the October to introduce it. And the reason why is we wanted to make sure that people bought into it, and people were struggling with, yeah, but if you don't change the KPIs or if you don't change the delivery, I'm losing half a day. And you say, well, no, you're not losing half a day. You're putting the hours in Monday to Thursday anyway. But now from half day Friday, you can go and spend time with your family. You can go and do something for yourself. You can go and have a break, or no meetings. You can catch up on emails, do what you want. And we introduced that, and just that freedom, I think we had a lot of resistance around it. Surprised at that. But to the person that made the comment, a lot of the resistance came from the older generation. And someone explained it to me really nicely. They said, the problem is when I go home and I'm coming home at 2 or 3 o'clock on a Friday, in my neighborhood, we all know each other. And people ask my wife, something wrong right now at work. And it was you ask for antidote. For me, that was like, wow, really? They said, yeah, we're very community-based, and where I work, they'll be thinking that something's not right. If I start coming home early on a Friday, what will people think? Right. And yeah, it was. I think you've got to work through those. You put a half day Friday in place and it works. If I look at now, our company is closed. Everyone's working from home. We've been in this state since March last year. I've got the office open, usually when no state of emergency, but we have a BCP of about 15 people in the office, and people can go to the office if they want, but it's 30, 40 people a day go. Actually, when it comes to it now, the COVID situation, terrible, but the opportunities are that it's forced us to be a bit more open to the idea of people not being in the office. However, the hours are still the same. I find now the commuting that people used to do now, they're not starting later and finishing earlier. They're just going online earlier.
Yeah.
So we've come up a couple of basic things I'll get into a little bit later on what we put in place, because people are working excessive hours, but now it's in front of the screen. I think that's a concern.
Yeah, and it's difficult to monitor as well. So a lot of people find it also hard to say no, because it's like, well, you're at home anyway and you shouldn't be going out. So why don't you hop on a global meeting at a late hour? I think that's become a bit of a trend right now that we're seeing, not just in Japan, but globally as well. So that's yeah, really interesting to hear. And kind of, you know, I want to expand a bit on this conversation, and we have gotten a comment around, you know, you talked about the older generation resistance being quite a challenge, but also, you know, you discussed a lot about those, I guess, benefits, or, you know, the structures that you've built in place for women to come back to the workforce, right? Did you get any complaints from male employees that, you know, female employees were getting these benefits? And if you did, like, what was your kind of solution or take on that?
We had some, obviously there was some comments that was made. You've got to think of our makeup, right? Our makeup is, we've got our head office, which is here in Tokyo, which has 400 odd people. And then we've also got a large sales force that all around Japan. So we're like 1,900 people, 1,500 people in the sales commercial side. Within the organization, we've got 27 different nationalities in our management group. Like a third of our management group is from 27 different nationalities. If you actually look, we've got 30 nationalities in our top 5%. They all sit in the 5% of the organization. So predominantly we're Japanese, and predominantly our largest skew is towards field sales. Our field sales organization is a very traditional Japanese sales force. So yeah, we have had some complaints, concerns, but I take to the very first thing I said. A lot of it, you can educate people. A lot is bias, and you can speak, you can support people. Often there's a bit of fear in there as well. When we started hiring a lot of female talent, we started bringing a lot of female talent into the workforce. We had 6-7 years ago, there was like 4% females in the sales force itself. And I raised that up to 12%. You're starting to get more critical mass, and you're starting to be able to see the value that these talented female talent bring. It stopped a lot of the murmuring. You had to do a lot of education, and the education was, how do I manage a diverse team? I've managed 5 or 6 guys, and we all go out and we have drinks, and it's a very different way to managing. And there was a lot of a challenge around that culture. A lot of people wanted to hold on to that, and we had to challenge that and show them that you know, that's not the culture we want to have, and this is the new way of doing. So, but you do get some resistance. I find that more than anything, you need to get down to the root cause of it. A lot of it is a bit illogical. Sometimes you get really deep down and you start exploring the biases, and you expose the bias, and people are often quite ashamed by the fact that that's the bias that held them in that place.
Yeah, and I think with bias, it's we have, you know, an immediate reaction to something. We say, oh, that's not what we're used to, or, you know, this is not something that I'm comfortable with. But excuse me, I'm just gonna have a drink.
Drink some water, no problem.
Yeah, I think yeah, with bias, as I was saying, it's just it is going to be there. We can't get rid of it, but it's how to control it and how to have people find ways to understand the logic or the reasoning behind those new actions or those new changes, and adapt their mindset to that. So that's definitely.
Yeah, I think it just, that takes time and effort. And unconsciously biased people, I have a lot of time with. But consciously biased, I struggle. Yeah, I struggle, because if you're consciously holding on to that bias, and even though it can share all the logic, there are those that do. You know, sometimes those people you can't help, and but you got to keep trying, and you keep trying all different angles with them.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's other question, but the part that I didn't get to before was around disability. I spoke a bit about gender. Maybe I can talk a little bit about disability, if that's okay.
Yeah.
our focus area, what we were on disability, was a different focus area. Gender, we've done a lot of work on, but disability was an area that we'd mainly focused because there was a government. We had to meet the requirements from the government, and we were hiring people with disability into the organization, but we didn't really have a strong strategy or plan around it. So we started educating people around more, not physical disability, also mental disability. And people understanding in the organization of, if you are going to have a person with disability, what you need to do, how you need to lead, how do you need to support them. And that was new for a lot of people. But this is a case that I mentioned before, where we had to work with Mira Ira, external consultant, to help us understand much more in Japan around disability. So when I was a psych, so when I was an intern, my peer was in a wheelchair. He was a rugby player like me, and when he was 18, he had a terrible accident and was in a wheelchair. And we'd worked a lot on crisis line and stuff like that. So I understood him. When I was in banking, we did a lot of work in the UK around disability. But when it comes to Japan and disability, I had very little knowledge and exposure. And this is where you really need to partner up. And that's what we did. We did education sessions, not just with leaders, but also employees. And the outcome of that was that we've hired a number of mentally disabled employees, not physically. Because I know physically disabled employees is a very small pool of talent that everyone's trying to hire these people in to hit the quota. We didn't go for the quota. We went for our target, which is over the quota, and that's what we're driving towards. And of course, I think one of the key things now, and it goes back to one of the people on the call asked, the V500 certification, PMI, so our parent company signed up for. And we have now we've got this very large strategy of what we're doing in the disability safe space, which helps.
Yeah. And I think, your stance to, there's a requirement, but really going beyond that and seeing, what are the gaps there perhaps, and going into that, invisible like disabilities that we sometimes call them, that you can't tell or you can't see, or there's more stigma around. That's really some of the places that a lot of companies or people don't get to. So I think it's really great that you've had that focus around there as well. We've had a few questions come in, and some are actually related to what I was planning to ask you, which is great. We're all very aligned on what we want to learn about. So a lot of people, especially in Japan still with the state of emergency, a lot of uncertainty going around. And, we're almost sick of hearing about it, but it's still going on with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've been struggling with it, and it's still going through a lot of difficult and challenging times. So could you share a bit about what you've done to maintain your inclusive environment, to keep, the people engaged over the past, I guess now 16 to 18 months? And if you can add on as well, another question is that right now, most of your workforce is working remotely. Is that going to be the case after this whole situation as well?
Thanks for the question. So, yeah, when it first started off, everyone was in the view that it'd be very short. It'd be like a 3-month thing. So when we first started off, we had a steady stream of communication to all the employees, very clearly, from our head of HR, head of PNC, people and culture globally, and also our head of operations, also regionally and locally. And what we committed to was employment stability, financial stability. We gave special recognition, so we gave people financial support, and at the same time, we wanted people to take vacations. Okay, so and we also had a whole policy around if you got sick and you got COVID, how the company would support you, and you didn't have to use your annual leave, and sick leave we would support and things like that. So we just made people feel comfortable on that. Before the state of emergency was announced, we closed the office. As a management team, we decided that we valued the health and safety of our employees the most. And if you think about it, we've got a large sales force doing face-to-face, so the guided trial and guided selling. So we actually removed them from that, and they were doing phone calls, and we just took them away from that exposure. I think the most important thing for us in the beginning last year, because it's very different this year, was about staying connected, because we are a super close group. We've got a fantastic workspace where everyone's we got this like canteen area, but it's like an open space that people do meetings there, and everyone gets together, and people are missing that connectivity. A Stay Connected newsletter where we spoke about business updates and leadership and voices of employees and videos. But we also did a lot of fun things, and we did like bingo, and we did squat challenge and stretch challenge and treasure hunt for children, because at that stage a lot of the nurseries were closed, and employees that had their kids at home balancing them on the lap trying to do a call. As we did stuff for kids, we brought Bring Your Pet to work, but it was all virtual. So we did these fun things as well. So last year was very much focused on physical well-being and connectivity. So we had a person do yoga, and 2 or 3 times you can log on and do yoga with them and all these type of things. This, however, the focus has been a lot on psychological and emotional well-being. So we just did a survey, an employee survey. We do one every quarter. And what came out of the survey was our results are going up, people feel engaged, but when it comes to psychological welfare and people are really struggling in that space. So we put some initiatives in place. So we put things like, we have monthly health sessions where we talk about resilience and coping and well-being, but we had to do some basic things. And this is going to sound a bit strange, and maybe to the people on the call, the problem, people are working many hours. So we had to enforce there will be no meetings between 12 and 1, like there is now. Okay, all external things like this, but between 12 and 1, no meeting, no exception. So management team members, no exception. So allow people to at least have a break for lunch, because people weren't doing it. Also enforce that email etiquette. At 9 in the morning, you can email people, and at 6:30, it's over. Just so people could turn off, because people work long hours in Japan. This virtual setting is really adding to that problem of burnout. We also reinforce the line managers the duty of care. And what I mean by that is we've got a list of all the people living at home on their own that maybe haven't been out the house. That the line managers aren't phoning to say, have you done this? So I need you to do that. They're phoning to say, how are you doing? Do you need anything? You know, is giving a little bit of that support. And it's small things like that right now are really helping. We did big, you know, when no one could get masks, we got masks in from all around the world, and we gave everyone masks because there was a shortage of masks. And we've got alcohol for those type of things. I think for employees were really important. They were so happy because it wasn't just for them, for their families as well. But ongoing, I think the most important thing is around this cycle. As this continues, it will continue for a long time. As we feel a little bit isolated in this bubble, things aren't opening up that people can travel. The psychological well-being of you and all your employees is, I think, the thing that you need to focus the most on, because saying take holiday, that people won't. You can force it, but it's a bit of a struggle. So quickly on to the last one, we have a thing called Smart Work. So when this all ends, we will implement a thing called Smart Work, which is more than likely will be up to you as an employee, how much you want to come to the office. It's totally flexible. We'll have a full office available. So you could come for a couple of hours. You could come for every day. You can 1 day a week. However, there's also from the manager's side, the manager is able to say, look, I need you to come at least 2 days this week. Or whatever. But we're not able to put that in place till I can guarantee the health and safety of my employees. And right now, because they don't have vaccinations, I can't. So I can't ask someone that's living in Chiba to say, please come on a train and sit on the train for an hour and a half to come to the office for a meeting. So right now we'll stay virtual. And even if we do move to Smart Work, it's saying Q1 next year, we'll most probably keep all our meetings virtual. I'll answer your questions very quickly there.
Thank you so much. And we are coming to time in around 10 minutes, but we do actually have some questions from the audience that I'd like to get to. And it's a lot about, so we talked a lot about gender diversity, how do we support the women, some of the initiatives around that. And then a big thing coming in from the audience, as well as the Dream Collective focuses on, is male engagement. How do we create males to be part of the gender diversity, conversation and progression as well? So we've got a question surrounding two things kind of, but in the same realm. So a challenge that somebody from the audience is having is trying to keep male managers engaged in that conversation, especially when they don't see a current problem there. And as we were talking about, their biases are quite ingrained. So if you do have some sort of transformational story or something that you can talk to from male employees coming around to, really being active in that gender conversation, they'd love to hear about it. Another kind of asset to that, and perhaps this might relate to your example that if you can share, is that we talked about, supporting mothers with return to work after giving birth. But how do we enforce or encourage male employees to take paternity leave more as well? And I think that's quite a big topic in Japan currently as well.
Yeah, look, in my experience, you're not going to find the solution without your male employees. Whenever I've ever run any diversity trainings or courses, I've always got male employees in the room. I think if you start having groups where it's just exclusively one gender, become a little bit too blinkered. And I think you need to provide diverse thinking. So getting males included in the development and design is a great way to feel and to empower them to feel like they're part of the solution. So if you're just building stuff and feeding it through, you're going to get resentment, and that causes, you can fix it, but you're causing yourself a lot of pain where you don't need to. So I think that's one key thing that you must do, and we've done that as much as possible. Also, whenever policies we put in place, we also try and make sure it's for all employees. So give an example, half day Friday is for everyone. Another example is we have 10 days of family care. It's not female skewed. It's for all employees. So annual leave, it's on top of your annual leave. So if you need to go and take care of your children or your parents, because we know, especially in Japan, we've got lots of people that got elderly parents. If you need to take time out and you need to go and take care of these things, we have those opportunities for people. So try and build as much as you can for the whole population. But if you build particularly for female talent and female development, I find that a lot of executives and managers are more than happy to mentor and take care and support, but you need to get them involved early on. I think that's key. Paternity, that's a really interesting one. So my wife and I, my son's 3, so my son's here. So my assignment in Japan has been fantastic. I've got a fantastic wife, and I'm a dad. My paternity was a couple of days. What we've done is we've actually changed the policy, and currently it's in place in a number of countries, and we actually have 18 weeks for female talent that goes out and has children, but also for the primary caregiver, we also have 8 weeks of paternity now, or for caregivers. So it's set up in such a way that, for people that adopt children, or for people that are that need that time after a child's been born, or when they've adopted a child. So we've set that up. We're rolling it out now. Now, we haven't brought that to Japan yet, but we will, because it's a global program that we'll be putting in place. The difficulty we have is we can put all these things in place, but there's a bit of, people struggle to take the time. So I went to a number of people and I asked them, because it's the best thing to do is go and ask people, why don't you take leave? Your wife had a baby, you've got this opportunity to take time off work. And the main comment we get back is, yeah, but if I take time off work, I leave my team and they have to cover for me. And I have this feeling of guilt because now they have to pick up my weight, my tasks, my KPIs. So I think if you're going to design these things, I think your question was about enforce. I don't think you should enforce, you should set free. So what you're going to have to do is if you have a group of people working on something and one wants to go out and take paternity leave or caregiver leave, you're going to have to adjust the KPIs of that team. You can't keep the same KPIs and now they lose 1 or 2 people from that. And I think that's the way to do it rather than enforce. Telling people you will do this, because that emotion of feeling guilty and leaving their team members was a strong emotion that the guys in the sales force that I spoke to had. So.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you. And it's about really not having people feel bad and having to take a certain way, but changing their mindset and perception around it as well. Because a lot of what we hear from the market and, clients that we work with is that, men aren't taking parental leave because they feel like it's going to affect their promotion harder than it does women. And there is actually research around that where there's higher stakes for men, or biases, I guess, that they're faced against when they do choose to take longer parental leave. So it's really about changing the culture, changing the discussions, and the language that we have surrounding that. So I think that's definitely some of the key.
And I think you also need to highlight to people that do.
Mm.
This is the thing. I think we always forget that part. People that have, you need to film it or write an article and share with other people, and you're giving permission. Like, you can do this. It's okay. And the person still had a fantastic career afterwards. It's okay.
Almost like creating a role model, right? Like saying that this person's done it. You can do it too. And from male employees. Yeah, exactly. About parental leave for female leaders, about getting into that leadership position. I think there's a lot of things that we can really do. And I think when we talk about kind of male allyship and, what men can do in that gender diversity conversation, it's about, you mentioned like mentoring. Sponsorship has become a big thing as well, where we're not talking about women are getting more benefits. It's about understanding that there is a disparity and there's something that we need to do in terms of equity, creating that opportunity and support that's needed there.
I think that it's one of the pieces that we need to do a lot of work on is we need to build confidence in our female talent. Because, a lot of times you give a promotion, a stretch target, whatever it is, to a female talent, and they doubt themselves that they can do well in that job. And they need to have, it helps having mentors and buddies and encouragement around that. And it helps having it across both genders and having role models and people to support you that have been through it. It makes it easier. And in the beginning for us, we didn't have that. So it was hard. But now, as we're getting more and more people, we're sitting with over 40% of leaders that, promotions are female, that really helps because now role models and now you do have people that you can that can see that it's possible.
Yeah, and I think I could sit with you here talking for hours, Aaron, but unfortunately we are getting to time. But thank you so much for all the insight, the initiatives that you've shared. I think a lot of the people have gone on those really practical solutions and also, your struggles and challenges around that as well. So thank you for being so open and honest and sharing a lot for our network as well. So I'll go into closing and just reshare my screen. So let me get here. Gotten through Q&A. So we've gotten 1 hour for this session. So we're going to be closing, but let's definitely stay connected. We'll be updating a lot about this event, but also future opportunities we have with other partners, as well as Philip Morris Japan on our website, on our social media handles. So please stay connected. My colleague Angelica should be sharing a link to PMJ's website just now as well. So there's a lot of insight into some of the initiatives, the culture that's there, but as well as some of the open opportunities at Philip Morris Japan as well. We also have a next event coming up in July, talking a little bit more about networking with other leaders, about the culture as well as the opportunities available. So we'll definitely make sure that everybody on this call and those who have registered get that information. But thank you everybody for joining today, and Aaron, thank you so much for your time, and we hope that you got a lot of insight out of this as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nats. I really appreciate it. And like I said, anyone on the call that wants to reach out is more than welcome to. We don't have all the ideas, and I think we just need to share a lot more around solutions because that will help a lot. So I'm happy to do that. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's, as we always say as well, it's not about one company doing a really good job and then it being a competition, but it's really about having those shared experiences, having a shared goal and seeing what we can do together as a collective, but also within your company. So I think it's great to hear, some of PMJ's initiatives as well as, us to connect and hear about other industries, other companies, other markets as well. So always room to learn and improve together. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining the 1 hour session today. We'll be sending up follow-up emails with some of the information that we've shared today as well. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for joining in your lunch hour. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, bye.